Happiness, happiness. Interviewer: can you describe the events of that morning? Tomoyasu: I left home with my daughter, Masako. She was on her way to work. I was going to see a friend. An air raid warning was issued. I told Masako I was going home. She said, I'm going to the office. I did chores and waited for the warning to be lifted. I folded the bedding. I rearranged the closet. I cleaned the windows with a wet rag. There was a flash. My first thought was that it was the flash of a camera. It sounds so ridiculous now. It pierced my eyes. My mind went blank. The glass from the windows was shattering all around me. It sounded like when my mother used to hush me to be quiet. When I became conscious again, I realized I wasn't standing. I had been thrown into a different room. The rag was still in my hand, but it was no longer wet. My only thought was to find my daughter. I looked outside the window and saw one of my neighbors standing almost naked. His skin was peeling off all over his body. It was hanging from his fingertips. I asked him what had happened. He was too exhausted to reply. He was looking in every direction. I can only assume for his family. I thought, I must go and find Masako. I put my shoes on and took my air raid hood with me. I made my way to the train station. So many people were marching toward me, away from the city. I smelled something similar to grilled squid. I must have been in shock, because the people looked like squid washing up on the shore. I saw a young girl coming toward me. Her skin was melting down her. It was like wax. She was muttering, "Mother, water, mother, water." I thought she must be Masako, but she wasn't. I didn't give her any water. I am sorry that I didn't, but I was trying to find my Masako. I ran all the way to Hiroshima Station. It was full of people. Some of them were dead. Many of them were lying on the ground. They were calling for their mothers and asking for water. I went to Tokawa Bridge. I had to cross the bridge to get to my daughter's office. Interviewer: did you see the mushroom cloud? Tomoyasu: no, I didn't see the cloud. Interviewer: you didn't see the mushroom cloud? Tomoyasu: I didn't see the mushroom cloud. I was trying to find Masako. Interviewer: but the cloud spread over the city. Tomoyasu: I was trying to find her. They told me I couldn't go beyond the bridge. I thought she might be back home, so I turned around. It was at the Nikitsu shrine when the black rain started falling from the sky. I wondered what it was. Interviewer: can you describe the black rain? Tomoyasu: I waited for her in the house. I opened the windows, even though there was no glass. I stayed awake all night waiting, but she didn't come back. Around 6:30 the next morning, Mr. Ishiru came around. His daughter was working at the same office as my daughter. He called out asking for Masako's house. I ran outside. I called, "It's here! Over here!" Mr. Ishiru came up to me. He said, "Quick! Get some clothes and go for her. She is at the bank of the Ota River." I ran as fast as I could, faster than I was able to run. When I reached the Tokiwa Bridge, there were soldiers lying on the ground. Around Hiroshima Station, I saw more people lying dead. There were more on the morning of the 7th than on the 6th. When I reached the riverbank, I couldn't tell who was who. I kept looking for Masako. I heard someone crying, "Mother!" I recognized her voice. I found her in horrible condition, and she still appears in my dreams that way. She said, "It took you so long." I apologized to her. I told her I came as fast as I could. It was just the two of us. I didn't know what to do. I was not a nurse. There were maggots in her wounds and a sticky yellow liquid. I tried to clean her up, but her skin was peeling off. The maggots were coming out all over. I couldn't wipe them off, or I would wipe off her skin and muscle. I had to pick them out. She asked me what I was doing. I told her, "Oh, Masako, it's nothing." She nodded. 9 hours later, she died. Interviewer: you were holding her in your arms all that time. Tomoyasu: yes, I held her in my arms. She said, "I don't want to die." I told her, "You're not going to die." She said, "I promise I won't die before we get home." But she was in pain, and she kept crying, "Mother." Interviewer: it must be hard to talk about these things. Tomoyasu: When I heard that your organization was recording testimonies, I knew I had to come. She died in my arms, saying, 'I don't want to die.' That is what death is like. It doesn't matter what uniforms the soldiers are wearing. It doesn't matter how good the weapons are. I thought if everyone could see what I saw, we would never have war any more." I pressed stop on the boombox because the interview was over. The girls were crying, and the boys were making funny barfing noises. "Well," Mr. Keegan said, wiping his forehead with a handkerchief as he stood up from his chair, "Oscar has certainly given us a lot to think about." I said, "I'm not done." He said, "That seems pretty complete to me." I explained, because the radiant heat traveled in straight lines from the explosion, scientists were able to determine the direction toward the hypocenter from a number of different points by observing the shadows cast by intervening objects. The shadows gave an indication of the height of the burst of the bomb and the diameter of the ball of fire at the instant it was exerting the maximum charring effect. Isn't that fascinating? Jimmy Snyder raised his hand. I called on him. He asked, "Why are you so weird?" I asked if his question was rhetorical. Mr. Keegan told him to go to Principal Bundy's office. Some of the kids cracked up. I knew they were cracking up in the bad way, which is at me, but I tried to maintain my confidence. Another interesting feature that has to do with the explosion was the relationship between the degree of burning and color, because dark colors absorb light, obviously. For example, a famous chess match between two grandmasters was going on that morning on a life-size board in one of the big city parks. The bomb destroyed everything. The spectators in the seats, the people who were filming the match, their black cameras, the timing clocks, even the grandmasters. All that was left were white pieces on white square islands. As he walked out of the room, Jimmy said, "Hey, Oscar, who's Buckminster?" I told him, Richard Buckminster Fuller was a scientist, philosopher, and inventor who is the most famous for designing the geodesic dome, whose most famous version is the buckyball. He died in 1983, I think. Jimmy said, "I mean your Buckminster." I didn't know why he was asking, because I had brought Buckminster to school for a demonstration only a couple of weeks before and dropped him from the roof to show how cats reach terminal velocity by making themselves into little parachutes, and that cats actually have a better chance of surviving a fall from the 20th floor than the 8th floor, because it takes them about 8 floors to realize what's going on and relax and correct themselves. I said, "Buckminster is my pussy." Jimmy pointed at me and said, "Ha ha." The kids cracked up in the bad way. I didn't get what was so hilarious. Mr. Keegan got angry and said, "Jimmy." Jimmy said, "What? What did I do?" I could tell that inside Mr. Keegan was cracking up too. What I was saying was, they found a piece of paper about 1/2 kilometer from the epicenter, and the letters, which they call characters, were neatly burned out. I became extremely curious about what that would look like, so first I tried to cut out letters on my own, but my hands weren't good enough to do it, so I did some research, and I found a printer on Spring Street who specializes in die cutting, and he said he could do it for $250. I asked him if that included tax. He said no, but I still thought it was worth the money, so I took my mom's credit card, and anyway, here it is. I held up the sheet of paper with the first page of A Brief History of Time in Japanese, which I got the translation of from Amazon.co.jp. I looked at the class through the story of the turtles. That was Wednesday. I spent Thursday's recess in the library, reading the new issue of American Drummer, which librarian Higgins orders especially for me. It was boring. I went to the science lab to see if Mr. Powers would do some experiments with me. He said he actually had planned to eat lunch with some other teachers, and he couldn't let me be in the lab alone. So I made some jewelry in the art studio, which you are allowed to be in alone. Friday, Jimmy Snyder called me from across the playground, and then he came up to me with a bunch of friends. He said, "Hey, Oscar, would you rather have a hand job or a blow job from Emma Watson?" I told him I didn't know who Emma Watson was. Matt Colber said, "Hermione, retard." I said, "Who's Hermione? And I'm not mentally retarded." Dave Mallon said, "In Harry Potter, fag boy." Steve Wickard said, "She has sweet tits now." Jake Riley said, "Hand job or blow job?" I said, "I've never even met her." I know a lot about birds and bees, but I don't know very much about the birds and the bees. Everything I do know I had to teach myself on the internet because I don't have anyone to ask. For example, I know that you give someone a blowjob by putting your penis in their mouth. I know that dick is penis and that cock is penis too, and monster cock, obviously. I know that VJs get wet when a woman is having sex, although I don't know what they get wet with. I know that VJ is cunt and also ass. I know what dildos are, I think, but I don't know what cum is exactly. I know that anal sex is humping in the anus, but I wish I didn't. Jimmy Snyder pushed my shoulder and said, "Say your mom's a whore." I said, "Your mom's a whore." He said, "Say your mom's a whore." I said, "Your mom's a whore." Say, "My mom is a whore." Your mom is a whore. Steve and Dave and Matt and Jake were cracking up, but Jimmy was getting really, really angry. He raised a fist and said, "Prepare to die." I looked around for a teacher, but I didn't see any. "My mom's a whore," I said. I went inside and read a few more sentences of A Brief History of Time. Then I broke a mechanical pencil. When I came home, Stan said, "You've got mail." Dear Oscar, thanks for mailing me the $76.50 you owed me. To tell you the truth, I never thought I'd see that money. Now I will believe everyone. Cab driver, Marty Malhotra. P.S. No tip? I counted off 7 minutes that night, and then 14 minutes, and then 30. I knew I'd never be able to fall asleep because I was so excited that the next day I'd be able to search for the lock. I started inventing like a beaver. I thought about how in 100 years every name in the 2003 Yellow Pages will be someone who's dead, and how once I was at the Minches, I saw a TV show where someone ripped a phone book in half with his hands. I thought about how I wouldn't want someone to rip a 2003 Yellow Pages in half in 100 years, because even though everyone will be dead, it still felt like it should make a difference. So I invented a black box Yellow Pages, which is a phone book that's made out of material that they make the black boxes on airplanes out of. I still couldn't sleep. I invented a postage stamp where the back tastes like creme brulee. I still couldn't sleep. What if you trained seeing eye dogs to be bomb-sniffing dogs, so that they'd be sniffing eye, seeing bomb dogs? That way blind people could get paid for being led around and could be contributing members to our society, and we'd all be safer too. I was getting further and further from sleep. When I woke up, it was Saturday. I went upstairs to pick up Mr. Black, and he was waiting in front of his door, snapping his fingers next to his ear. "What's this?" he asked, when I handed him the present I made for him. I shrugged my shoulders, just like Dad used to. "What am I supposed to do with it?" I told him, "Open it, obviously." But I couldn't keep my happiness in, and before he got the paper off the box, I said, "It's a necklace I made from you with a compass pendant so you can know where you are in relation to the bed." He kept opening it and said, "How nice of you." "Yeah," I said, taking the box from him because I could open it faster. "It probably won't work outside your apartment because the magnetic field of the bed gets smaller the farther you get from it. But still." I handed him the necklace and he put it on. It said that the bed was north. "So where to?" he asked. "The Bronx," I said. "The IRT?" "The what?" "The IRT train." "There isn't an IRT train, and I don't take public transportation." "Why not?" "It's an obvious target." "So how do you plan on us getting there?" "We'll walk." "That's got to be about 20 miles from here," he said. "And have you seen me walk?" "That's true." "Let's take the IRT." "There is no IRT." "Whatever there is, let's take it." On our way out, I said, "Stan, this is Mr. Black. Mr. Black, this is Stan." Mr. Black stuck out his hand, and Stan shook it. I told Sam, "Mr. Black lives in 6A. Stan took his hand back, but I don't think Mr. Black was offended. Almost the whole ride to the Bronx was underground, which made me feel incredibly panicky, but once we got to the poor parts, it went above ground, which I preferred. A lot of the buildings in the Bronx were empty, which I could tell because they didn't have windows, and you could see right through them, even at high speeds. We got off the train and went down the street. Mr. Black had me hold his hand as we looked for the address. I asked him if he was racist. He said poverty made him nervous, not people. Just as a joke, I asked him if he was gay. He said, "I suppose so." "Really?" I asked, but I didn't take my hand back, because I'm not homophobic. The building's buzzer was broken, so the door was held open with a brick. Angus Black's apartment was on the 3rd floor, and there was no elevator. Mr. Black said he'd wait for me, because the stairs at the subway were enough stairs for him for one day, so I went up alone. The floor of the hallway was sticky, and for some reason all of the peepholes had black paint over them. Someone was singing from behind one of the doors, and I heard TVs behind a bunch of others. I tried my key in Angus's lock, but it didn't work, so I knocked. A little woman answered who was in a wheelchair. She was Mexican, I think, or Brazilian, or something. "Excuse me, is your name Angus Black?" she said. "No explica English." "What?" "No explica inglés." "I'm sorry," I said, "but I don't understand you. Could you please repeat yourself and enunciate a little better?" "No explica inglés," she said. I pointed a finger in the air, which is the universal sign for hold on, and then I called down to Mr. Black from the stairwell. "I don't think she speaks English." "Well, what does she speak?" "What do you speak?" I asked her, and then I realized how dumb my question was, so I tried a different approach. "Parlez-vous français?" "Espagnol," she said. "Espagnol," I hollered down. "Terrific," he hollered back. "I picked up a little Espagnol along the way." So I brought her wheelchair to the stairwell, and they hollered to each other, which was kind of weird because their voices were traveling back and forth, but they couldn't see each other's faces. They cracked up together, and their laughter ran up and down the stairs. Then Mr. Black hollered, "Oscar," and I hollered, "That's my name, don't wear it out," and he hollered, "Come on down." When I got back to the lobby, Mr. Black explained that the person we were looking for had been a waitress at Windows on the World. What the? The woman I just spoke with, Felice, didn't know her personally. She was told about her when she moved in. Really? I wouldn't make that up. We went out to the street and started walking. A car drove by that was playing music extremely loudly, and it vibrated my heart. I looked up, and there were strings connecting a lot of the windows with clothes hanging on them. I asked Mr. Black if that's what people meant when they said clotheslines. He said, "That's what they mean." I said, "That's what I thought." We walked some more. Kids were kicking rocks in the street and cracking up in the good way. Mr. Black picked up one of the rocks and put it in his pocket. He looked at the street sign and then at his watch. A couple of old men were sitting in chairs in front of a store. They were smoking cigars and watching the world like it was TV. "That's so weird to think about," I said. "What is?" "That she worked there. Maybe she knew my dad. Or not knew him, but maybe she served him that morning. He was there in the restaurant. He had a meeting. Maybe she refilled his coffee or something." "It's possible." "Maybe they died together." I know he didn't know what to say to that, because of course they died together. The real question was how they died together, like whether they were on different ends of the restaurant, or next to each other, or something else. Maybe they had gone up to the roof together. You saw in some of the pictures that people jumped together and held hands, so maybe they did that. Or maybe they just talked to each other until the building fell. What would they have talked about? They were obviously so different. Maybe he told her about me. I wonder what he told her. I couldn't tell how it made me feel to think of him holding someone's hand. "Did she have any kids?" I asked. "I don't know." "Ask her." "Ask who?" "Let's go back and ask the woman who's living there now. I bet she knows if Agnes had any kids." He didn't ask me why that question was important, or tell me she already told us everything she knew. We walked back 3 blocks, and I went up the stairs and brought her wheelchair back to the stairwell, and they talked up and down the stairs for a while. Then Mr. Black hollered, "She didn't!" But I wondered if he was lying to me, because even though I don't speak Spanish, I could hear that she said a lot more than just no. As we were walking back to the subway, I had a revelation, and then I got angry. "Wait a minute," I said. "What were you cracking up about before?" "Before?" "When you were talking to that woman the first time, you were cracking up. Both of you." "I don't know," he said. "You don't know?" "I don't remember." Try to remember. He thought for a minute. I can't remember. Lie, number 77. We bought some tamales that a woman was selling by the subway from a huge pot in a grocery cart. Normally, I don't like food that isn't individually wrapped or prepared by Mom, but we sat on the curb and ate our tamales. Mr. Black said, "If anything, I'm invigorated." What's invigorated? Energized, refreshed. I'm invigorated too. He put his arm around me and said, "Good. These are vegan, right?" I shook my tambourine as we walked up the stairs to the subway and held my breath when the train went underground. Albert Black came from Montana. He wanted to be an actor, but he didn't want to go to California because it was too close to home, and the whole point of being an actor was to be someone else. Alice Black was incredibly nervous because she lived in a building that was supposed to be for industrial purposes, so people weren't supposed to live there. Before she opened the door, she made us promise that we weren't from the housing authority. I said, "I suggest you take a look at us through the peephole." She did, and then she said, "Oh, you," which I thought was weird, and she let us in. Her hands were covered with charcoal, and I saw drawings everywhere, and they were all of the same man. "Are you 40? I'm 21. I'm 9. I'm 103. I asked her if she was the one who made the drawings. Yes. All of them? Yes. I didn't ask who the man in the drawings was because I was afraid the answer would give me heavy boots. You wouldn't draw someone that much unless you loved him and missed him. I told her, "You're extremely beautiful." "Thanks. Can we kiss?" Mr. Black stuck his elbow into my side and asked her, "Do you know anything about this key?" Dear Oscar Schell, I am responding on behalf of Dr. Cayley, who is currently in the Congo on a research expedition. She asked that I pass on her appreciation for your enthusiasm about her work with elephants. Given that I am already her assistant, and budget limitations being what they are, as I'm sure you've experienced, she isn't now able to take on anyone else. But she did want me to tell you that should your interest and availability remain, there might be a project next fall in Sudan that she will need help with. The grant proposals are just now going through. Please forward us your resume, including previous research experience, graduate and postgraduate transcripts, and 2 letters of recommendation. Best, Gary Franklin. Alan Black lived on the Lower East Side and was a doorman for a building on Central Park South, which was where we found him. He said he hated being a doorman because he had been an engineer in Russia, and now his brain was dying. He showed us a little portable TV that he kept in his pocket. "It plays DVDs," he said, "and if I had an email account, I could check it on this too." I told him I could set up an email account for him if he wanted. He said, "Yeah?" I took his device, which I wasn't familiar with, but figured out pretty quickly, and set everything up. I said, "What do you want for a username?" I suggested Alan, or Alan Black, or a nickname, or engineer. That could be cool. He put his finger on his mustache and thought about it. I asked if he had any kids. He said, "A son. Soon he's going to be taller than me, taller and smarter. He'll be a great doctor, a brain surgeon, or a lawyer for the Supreme Court." Well, you could make it your son's name, although I guess that might be confusing. He said, "Doorman." What? Make it Doorman. You can make it anything you want. Doorman. I made it Doorman 215 because there were already 214 doormen. As we were leaving, he said, "Good luck, Oscar." I said, "How did you know my name was Oscar?" Mr. Black said, "You told him." When I got home that afternoon, I sent him an email. "It's too bad you didn't know anything about the key, but it was still nice to meet you." Dear Oscar, while you certainly express yourself like an intelligent young man, without ever having met you and knowing nothing of your experience with scientific research, I'd have a hard time writing a recommendation. Thanks for the kind words about my work, and best of luck with your explorations, scientific and otherwise. Most sincerely, Jane Goodall. Arnold Black got right to the point. "I just can't help sorry." I said, But we haven't even told you what we need help with. He started getting teary and he said, I'm sorry, and closed the door. Mr. Black said, Onward ho! I nodded, and inside I thought, weird. Thank you for your letter. Because of the large volume of mail I receive, I am unable to write personal responses. Nevertheless, know that I read and save every letter with the hope of one day being able to give each the proper response it deserves. Until that day, most sincerely, Stephen Hawking. The week was incredibly boring, except for when I remembered the key. Even though I knew that there were 161,999,999 locks in New York that it didn't open, I still felt like it opened everything. Sometimes I liked to touch it just to know it was there, like the pepper spray I kept in my pocket. Or the opposite of that. I adjusted the strings so the keys, one to the apartment, one to I didn't know what, rested against my heart, which was nice, except the only thing was that it felt too cold sometimes, so I put a Band-Aid on that part of my chest, and the keys rested on that. Monday was boring. On Tuesday afternoon, I had to go to Dr. Feen. I didn't understand why I needed help, because it seemed to me that you should wear heavy boots when your dad dies, and if you aren't wearing heavy boots, then you need help. But I went anyway, because the raise in my allowance depended on it. Hey, buddy. Actually, I'm not your buddy. Right. Well, it's great weather today, don't you think? If you want, we could go outside and toss a ball. Yes to thinking it's great weather. No to wanting to toss a ball. You sure? Sports aren't fascinating. What do you find fascinating? What kind of answer are you looking for? What makes you think I'm looking for something? What makes you think I'm a huge moron? I don't think you're a huge moron. I don't think you're any kind of moron. Thanks. Why do you think you're here, Oscar? I'm here, Dr. Feen, because it upsets my mom that I'm having an impossible time with my life. Should it upset her? Not really. Life is impossible. When you say that you're having an impossible time, what do you mean? I'm constantly emotional. Are you emotional right now? I'm extremely emotional right now. What emotions are you feeling? All of them. Like, right now I'm feeling sadness, happiness, anger, love, guilt, joy, shame, and a little bit of humor because part of my brain is remembering something hilarious that toothpaste once did that I can't talk about. Sounds like you're feeling an awful lot. He put X-Lax in the pain au chocolat we sold at the French Club bake sale. That is funny. I'm feeling everything. This emotionalness of yours, does it affect your daily life? Well, to answer your question, I don't think that's a real word you used, emotionalness, but I understand what you were trying to say. And yes, I end up crying a lot, usually in private. It's extremely hard for me to go to school. I also can't sleep over at friends' apartments because I get panicky about being away from Mom. I'm not very good with people. What do you think is going on? I feel too much. That's what's going on. Do you think one can feel too much, or just feel in the wrong ways? My insides don't match up with my outsides. Do anyone's insides and outsides match up? I don't know. I'm only me. Maybe that's what a person's personality is, the difference between the inside and outside. But it's worse for me. I wonder if everyone thinks it's worse for him. Probably, but it really is worse for me. He sat back in his chair and put his pen on his desk. Can I ask you a personal question? It's a free country. Have you noticed any tiny hairs on your scrotum? Scrotum. The scrotum is the pouch at the base of your penis that holds your testicles. My nuts. That's right. Fascinating. Go ahead and take a second to think about it. I can turn around. I don't need to think. I don't have tiny hairs on my scrotum. He wrote something on a piece of paper. Dr. Feen, Howard. You told me I could tell you when I feel self-conscious? Yes, I feel self-conscious. I'm sorry. I know it was a very personal question. I only asked because sometimes when our bodies change, We experience dramatic changes in our emotional lives. I was wondering if perhaps some of what you've been experiencing is due to changes in your body. It isn't. It's because my dad died the most horrible death that anyone could ever invent. He looked at me, and I looked at him. I promised myself that I wouldn't be the first to look away. But, as usual, I was. What would you say to a little game? Is it a brain teaser? Not really. I like brain teasers. So do I, but this isn't a brain teaser. Bummer. I'm going to say a word, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. You can say a word, a person's name, or even a sound, whatever. There are no right or wrong answers here. No rules. Should we give it a try? I said, shoot. He said, family. I said, family. He said, I'm sorry. I don't think I explained this well. I'll say a word, and you tell me the first thing you think of. I said, you said family, and I thought of family. He said, but let's try not to use the same word, okay? Okay, yeah. Family. Heavy petting. Heavy petting? It's when a man rubs a woman's VJ with his fingers, right? Yes, that's right. Okay, there are no wrong answers. How about safety? How about it? Okay. Yeah. Belly button. Belly button? Belly button. I can't think of anything but belly button. Give it a try. Belly button. Belly button doesn't make me think of anything. Dig deep. In my belly button? In your brain, Oscar. Belly button. Belly button. Stomach anus. Good. Bad. No, I meant good. You did good. I did well. Well. Water. Celebrate. Ruff ruff. Was that a bark? Anyway. Okay, great. Yeah. Dirty. Belly button. Uncomfortable. Extremely. Yellow. The color of a yellow person's belly button. Let's see if we can keep it to one word, though, okay? For a game with no rules, this game has a lot of rules. Hurt. Realistic. Cucumber. Formica. Formica? Cucumber? Home. Where stuff is. Emergency. Dad. Is your father the cause of the emergency or the solution to it? Both. Happiness. Happiness? Oops, sorry. Happiness. I don't know. Try. Happiness. Don't know. Happiness. Dig. I shrugged my shoulders. Happiness. Happiness. Dr. Feen? Howard. Howard? Yes. I'm feeling self-conscious. We spent the rest of the 45 minutes talking, although I didn't have anything to say to him. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be anywhere that wasn't looking for the lock. When it was almost time for Mom to come in, Dr. Feen said he wanted us to make a plan for how the next week could be better than the last one. He said, why don't you tell me some things you think you can do, things to keep in mind, and then next week we'll talk about how successful you were. I'll try to go to school. Good, really good. What else? Maybe I'll try to be more patient with morons. Good, and what else? I don't know. Maybe I'll try not to ruin things by getting so emotional. Anything else? I'll try to be nicer to my mom. And isn't that enough? It is. It's more than enough. Now let me ask you, how do you think you're going to accomplish those things you mentioned? I'm going to bury my feelings deep inside me. What do you mean, bury your feelings? No matter how much I feel, I'm not going to let it out. If I have to cry, I'm going to cry on the inside. If I have to bleed, I'll bruise. If my heart starts going crazy, I'm not going to tell anyone in the world about it. It doesn't help anything. It just makes everyone's life worse. But if you're burying your feelings deep inside you, you won't really be you, will you? So? Can I ask you one last question? Was that it? Do you think any good can come from your father's death? Do I think any good can come from my father's death? Yes. Do you think any good can come from your father's death? I kicked over my chair, threw his papers across the floor, and hollered, "No, of course not, you fucking asshole." That was what I wanted to do. Instead, I just shrugged my shoulders. I went out to tell Mom it was her turn. She asked me how I went. I said, "Okay." She said, "Your magazines are in my bag, and a juice box." I said, "Thanks." She bent down and kissed me. When she went in, I very quietly took the stethoscope from my field kit, got on my knees, and pressed the, whatever the end is called, against the door. The bulb? Dad would have known. I couldn't hear a lot, and sometimes I wasn't sure if no one was talking or if I just wasn't hearing what they were saying. Expect too much too quickly. I know. You? What? Me? You doing? I'm not the point. Until you're feeling, to be impossible for Oscar too, but until he's feeling, it's to feel okay. Don't know. A problem. You? I don't know. Hours and hours to explain. You try to start? Start? Easy? Do you? Happy? What's funny? Used to be someone, me a question, and I could say yes or, but believe in short answers anymore. Maybe the wrong questions. Maybe to remind there are simple things. What's simple? How many fingers holding up? It's not that simple. I want to talk. That's not going to be easy. You ever considered what? What it sounds like. Even a hospital, in the way we usually think, safe environment. Home is a safe environment. Who the hell do you think you are? I'm sorry. To be sorry for. You're angry. It's not you that angry. Who are you angry at? Good for children to be around, going through the same process. Oscar isn't other children, even like being around kids his own age. A good thing? Oscar is Oscar and no one. That's a wonderful thing. I'm worried that, to himself, I can't believe we're talking about this. Talk about everything. Realize there was no reason to talk. Danger to himself? I'm concerned about indications of a child. Absolutely no way. Hospitalize my son. We were quiet on the car ride home. I turned on the radio and found a station playing Hey Jude. It was true. I didn't want to make it bad. I wanted to take the sad song and make it better. It's just that I didn't know how. After dinner, I went up to my room. I took the box out of the closet, and the box out of the box, and the bag, and the unfinished scarf, and the phone. Message 4. 9:46 a.m. It's Dad. Thomas Shell. It's Thomas Shell. Hello? Can you hear me? Are you there? Pick up, please. Pick up. I'm underneath a table. Hello? Sorry, I have a wet napkin wrapped around my face. Hello? No, try the other. Hello? Sorry, people are getting crazy. There's a helicopter circling around, and I think we're going to go up onto the roof. They say there's going to be some sort of evacuation. I don't know. Try that one. They say there's going to be some sort of evacuation from up there, which makes sense if the helicopters can get close enough. It makes sense. Please pick up. I don't know. Yeah, that one. Are you there? Try that one. Why didn't he say goodbye? I gave myself a bruise. Why didn't he say, I love you? Wednesday was boring. Thursday was boring. Friday was also boring, except that it was Friday, which meant it was almost Saturday, which meant I was that much closer to the lock, which was happiness.